2019, the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed launched a Green Legacy initiative to plant 20 billion seedlings by 2022. And the mission of Prime Minister Abiy is curbing the effects of the climate change and deforestation in Ethiopia, and also boosting up the benefits of forests in the country. This is ETV Special Edition. Thank you for joining me. I'm Sintayo Tamarat with this edition. And with this edition, I will just focus on the Ethiopian Green Legacy Initiative, particularly on how this Green Legacy should continue to have a lasting effect. And my guest today is Dr. Gamado Dale, the country director of the Global Green Growth Initiative. And he was also the Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. He was also former director of the Ethiopian Biodiversity Institute. And he served as lead researcher at Center of Environmental Science, Ethiopia's Addis Ababa University. Thank you for joining me, Dr. Gamado Dale.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Well, Dr. Gamado, before we start talking about the Green Legacy Initiative, let's try to talk about the Ethiopia's tradition of forest development as well as environmental protection. What is your observation so far?
Thank you very much for bringing that very important issue. Let's classify this tradition into how traditional communities have been managing their forest resources versus how government institutions have been managing over years. If we go back to the traditional community, based on their traditional knowledge, communities have been giving due care, due protection to natural resources, particularly for forest ecosystems. They have been protecting, they have been working toward the sustainable utilization of forest resources, but due to some challenge, particularly in terms of undermining the traditional practices, the traditional knowledge, and focusing on Western knowledge, the practices that have been in place for many years in local communities are now being eroded, and they are not paying attention to forest ecosystem. For example, in many areas, you do not cut trees. For example, in some cultures, in some traditions, youngsters are not allowed to carry an axe when they are going out because they are not mature enough to think, and so they may cut. So those are some of the practices, for example, in the Gada system. If you go to many areas where Ethiopian Orthodox churches are located, you clearly see some of the remnant natural forests are left in those compounds, which means traditionally our religious communities, specifically I would like to appreciate and thank the Ethiopian Orthodox Church for protecting nature in there, because when creation happened in the Bible, it says God has created Eden, Gannat, and put man in it to take care of it and to use it, which means the concept of sustainable management, sustainable use has been already in the religious teachings, and those were the past traditions, and still those cultures are maintained in some areas, but overall it is eroded and needs attention and also improvement on that and building on what we have. When we come to government institutions, there are offices, government organizations taking care of natural forest management and also promoting plantation forestry. But again, that was not systematic. And one of the areas where governments, officials, particularly top leadership, should consider is the issue of putting in place functioning system so that whether leaders change or not, the system continue working. And I would say the tradition in the forestry sector was not sustainable, was not to the objective of conserving natural resources and promoting its sustainable utilization, but it is on-off type, which needs careful revision and unbiased decision-making processes.
Well, that's a very nice mentioning, and let's come to the Green Legacy Initiative. Ethiopia has so far just planted over 18 billion trees in 3 seasons of the Green Legacy Initiative nationally. And what do you think are the long-term and short-term benefits of this initiative?
The Green Legacy Initiative is one of the exemplary initiatives that has been implemented by the Ethiopian government, and I would like to use this opportunity to thank the Prime Minister of Ethiopia for taking this leadership and also for publicizing it. It has many benefits in terms of short-term benefit, because it is not an easy job to mobilize millions of Ethiopians to participate in this initiative. This is something extraordinary and something we all need to appreciate and also contribute to positively. Public mobilization is one thing, public awareness raising is another short-term benefit. Most importantly, the understanding that we as human beings have destroyed our environment, our ecosystem, and we need to reverse that, and we need to re-establish forests, rehabilitate degraded forest ecosystems and other grasslands is something I would say most Ethiopians have kind of owned, and this is a kind of paradigm shift, and that has short-term benefit. Another short-term benefit is also we are trying our level best. The planting is giving a kind of buffer to existing forests also. This is another short term, because in many areas also we have gaps, which I will be explaining later on. The planting is happening around existing natural forest. When you plant there and when you are taking care of, at least the existing one is also being saved, and that's another. And all government institutions, if you have seen the 10 years perspective development plan, almost all line ministries have mainstreamed the concept of green legacy in their planning. Not only that, the green legacy has been included as one of the pillars in the 10-year perspective. This is short-term benefit, which has made such a bold decision to be taken in different line ministries. In terms of long-term, climate change is happening and costing us in lives and in livelihoods, and we have to adapt to the already changed climate and also to mitigate the negative impacts of climate change. So in the long term, if we deliver on those targets and meet the objectives in the Green Legacy Initiative, we include the global responsibilities we have, and we can increase our productivity, because when forests are protected, ecosystem services are enhanced, availability of water increases, soil fertility increases, and also conducive microclimatic settings will be in place that would increase in agriculture productivity and also public health, because in a healthy ecosystem, our communities are healthy. In a disturbed ecosystem, communities are in trouble. And most importantly, when our natural resources are protected, it directly contributes to peace and security, because when resources are not center of conflict, people can live together and share whatever is there. But when resources are limited, when forest resources are degraded, it can result in conflicts, community conflicts, and also regional instability. I mean, the migration could happen. So the Green Legacy Initiative directly contributes to peace building and also preventing our youngsters to migrate out of the country, rather create opportunity within the country, and directly to mitigation of climate change, which means absorbing the greenhouse gases from atmosphere and changing to usable form like oxygen and water, and many benefits. I would say the Green Legacy Initiative is something timely to address our domestic needs as well as global commitments that Ethiopia have submitted to.
Well, we said that Ethiopia has just planted 18 billion trees, but The success of this plantation will be based on how the government or just any other sector, including the private community and the communities at different places, and following up and monitoring the growth of the tree seedlings. And what is your observation in this regard so far?
The most important part in this effort is the ownership by government officials. In the Green Legacy Initiative, it is unusual the head of the government, the Prime Minister of the government, owned it as it is one project. This is excellent opportunity, exemplary opportunity, exemplary action that can be taken by many countries in Africa. Just to give you a background, when Ethiopia launched the Climate Resilient Green Economy Strategy in 2011 in Durban, South Africa, many developing countries did follow the example of Ethiopia, and many developed countries were ready to support the government of Ethiopia for its implementation. So Ethiopia is a country that has been leading by example, and the Green Legacy Initiative that has been led by the Prime Minister, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, is something beneficial not only locally, but also globally. This is one positive evaluation. On the other hand, the ownership by different line ministries and also public mobilization with starting from federal to local level is an excellent opportunity to do more and to achieve the targets. And the other evaluation from my side is we need to define what we mean by Green Legacy Initiative. What is it and what is it not? I would say there are some issues to be clarified. And when we say the Green Legacy Initiative, are we targeting restoration of degraded forest land and other ecosystems like grassland and the wetlands, or only focusing on forest is one point. The other one is, are we dealing with agricultural productivity in the context of Green Legacy Initiative? If yes, how would that fit to the objective of the Green Legacy Initiative? Do we have even a legal kind of regulation or proclamation explaining what Green Legacy is or is not, and how it should be implemented? That is another issue, because something owned by the last person in the government, the Prime Minister of the country, and under implementation all over the country should have kind of proclamation or regulation to deal with it. And also, I would say it should have proper planning and also institutional setting, and who is leading, who is contributing. Those needs to be clarified. I think in the Ethiopian Forest Development Establishment, some provisions have been included there, but I would propose and advise to have a dedicated kind of regulation or proclamation dealing with what Green Legacy means. Yes, Green Legacy contributes to agricultural productivity. There is no question on that. Yes, we have to plant fruit trees and other long-lasting species to promote adaptation and also mitigation to climate change. But we have to differentiate planting cereals or annual plants versus perennials, and differentiate what we really mean by a Green Legacy Initiative. One of the issue is also, even in the forestry context, there are millions of seedlings being planted every year. The point is, are those seedlings healthy? Do we know their back history? So the preparation should start from seed collection, nursery site preparation, raising the seedlings in the nursery, and then distributing them to their agroecologists. It doesn't make any economic and ecological sense, environmental sense, if we plant species in lowland areas in highland. I'm not sure if we are carefully following that. For example, species in the highland areas should be planted in the highland. Even within the highland, there are different agroecologies, microclimatic settings. Are we really addressing them in their natural environment? So planting what we call the species site match, which is we have to plant a species in its natural environment, not in arbitrary places. That is another issue that we have to improve as we go forward, and also plant the species with purpose. When I'm planting in a given area, what's the purpose of planting it? Is it for environmental benefit? Is it for biodiversity conservation, or for promoting ecosystem services, or for fruit purpose? So those purposes need to be clearly defined before engaging in planting. Overall, my assessment is it's excellent initiative, and that's something we shall be proud of and should contribute to its success.
What do you advise for the Ethiopian government to continue or to sustain the legacy?
My advice is specifically to our Prime Minister to establish a system that would function over years in terms of implementing this green legacy. It has to do with institutional setup, it has to do with financial resources, and also kind of coordination mechanism across different sectors. For example, when we are delegating a certain responsibility to institutions, that needs to come with human capacity development, institutional arrangements, and also financial budgeting, budget allocations, and effective coordination mechanism in which accountability can be ensured when given institution is coordinating, for example. And if others are not complying, there must be a coordination mechanism and also an accountability in place where progress are evaluated. Those who performed good can be rewarded. Those who did not can be held accountable for something they didn't deliver on. For that, my very straight and simple advice is to put system in place and ensure its sustainability in all aspects.
Well, how would you tell the government's effort in promoting forest development and forest business, supporting private investors engaged to the forest investment, as well as establishing nursery stations, financial support for the low-income youth and women if they want just to participate in forest business?
Thank you. I think there are efforts. For example, the country has developed and launched the 10 years forest development program, and the country has revised forest proclamation where clear provisions have been given in that legal document for the private sector engagement. For example, when a given investor is interested in forest development, and be it commercial forestry, plantation forestry, or natural forest protection, mostly for private sector it will be the private commercial plantation. There are clear provisions and tax exemption provisions in that proclamation. So the legal framework is there, but as foresters are not short cycle crops, they need at least 10 years for first harvest. They need, there must be a very secure protection mechanism in place for that investor to keep investing in the sector. It is unfortunate there are some irregularities here and there, and that those are not encouraging, and will not also encourage private sector to invest in the forest sector. So for us, it is time to carefully deal with some of the issues we have in forest sector. For the legal part, as I said, the exemption option is there, the legal protection is there, but in actual operation on the ground, we need to closely work with regions in the private sector. And on the other hand, Ethiopia is one of the few countries in the tropical environment that import wood from outside. and the need for firewood is also increasing over time. Most of our energy is coming from biomass from wood. That means all users of firewood are not using that firewood from their cultivation. They are cutting from the natural environment, which means we are, let me give you one very simple example. We have more than almost 45 universities in the country, okay? All universities use firewood to cook food for their students. None of the universities have plantation forestry from where they access the wood. They go out and they buy from market. On a single day, the volume of wood used for cooking in a given university is significant. Multiply that by 45 times a year, you can imagine how significant the volume of wood we are using for cooking. I'm just using this simple example because that can be calculated. We are now more than 100 million, and in every house we use firewood. And this firewood is coming from natural environment. None of the users are using their plantation. And the cycle continues. So if we want to bring a sustainable solution in this forestry sector, the Ethiopian government should focus on targeted plantation forestry. Targeted plantation forestry, like the one being practiced during the dark region, where you launch large-scale plantation all over the country, not only in one area or the other. But plantation forestry is, as it is short cycle, I would say around 10 years in terms of utilization, because we are advantageous. If you compare Ethiopia with Sweden, in Sweden you need 100 years to harvest first cycle. In our case, 7 to 10 years is enough. So we need to create all suitable conditions or favorable working environment for the private sector to engage in this and create this as a business. And this business model is profitable because demand for wood is out there, be it for timber, for lumber, for firewood, for construction. Then the market for wood is there, and the forestry should not be considered as a burden on the economy. It is one of the economic sector. It has to be considered as an economic sector because it is, as I said, profitable, and the demand is out there. So knowing that and planning accordingly, if the government offices, particularly those who are in charge of this responsibility, coordinate with private sector, engage them in large-scale planting, and if regions avail suitable land for plantation forestry, we can bring a change. One of my difficulty in understanding of on how we are managing our agriculture is, for example, if I have a hectare of land, and if I can get 1 million birds from that hectare of land by planting a forest, versus if I can get 500,000 by planting wheat, I have to be economically logical. I have to go for the best option. I'm not a strong supporter of converting whatever land is available to farmland, because that is gradually not beneficial to anybody. So we have to identify which type of land would be suitable for what purpose, and based on that, maximize interventions on them, and promoting commercial plantation in all regions of the country, and in which case the regional governments should own it and prepare suitable land for commercial plantation and promote that. So green legacy plantation forestry could be one of the components of green legacy, but it should not be done as in a campaign setting type, because it has to be well prepared, it's planned, variety should be identified. In plantation forestry, for sure, the plants will be exotic species, properly identified and propagated and planted. So one of the issue we have to address under green legacy is the issue of commercial plantation.
Well, Dr. Gemedo, the Ethiopia's Green Legacy Initiative, I think, is contributing to the global climate change efforts. So in this regard, it is not the government only that should strive towards achieving the targets of the Green Legacy Initiative, but also there must be some actors who are just working on environment protection in Ethiopia. So in this regard, what is the contribution of your institute, the Global Green Growth Institute you are just leading?
The Global Green Growth Institute is a global intergovernmental international organization. As I said, it is intergovernmental, means an institution established by many countries. So far we have 42 member countries. When it was established in 2012 in Rio de Janeiro, Ethiopia was one of the founding countries. And the institute promotes low carbon development following the green growth model, which is supporting sustainable development of member countries like Ethiopia by promoting fast growth while minimizing environmental pollution, loss of natural resources, which is possible, and that has been tested. Before it became an institute, it was an initiative developed by the Korean government, South Korean government, and they have seen the result of that initiative. And when governments started discussing about how best we can continue growing while not affecting our natural environment and the natural resources, that was how this institute was established and evolved. In Ethiopia, even before it became an institute, the initiative was strongly supporting the drafting of the Ethiopian Climate Resilient Green Economy Strategy, what we call CRGE. And for example, the vision statement and others were contributions from the initiative. When it was established, immediately after its establishment, again, the Global Green Growth Institute, or GGGI, has been strongly supporting the government of Ethiopia. If you may remember, the CRG was mainstreamed into the second growth and the transformation plan of the country, and the GGGI was instrumental in ensuring that mainstreaming. And then we are working with Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Transport, because we are not only focusing on forest sector, we are also focusing on waste management, clean energy, using the solar PV, e-mobility, promoting e-mobility, promoting sustainable transport, and also restoring degraded forest landscapes and promoting ecosystem services. So far, for example, we have implemented projects like developing bankable or winning project proposals for mobilizing financial resources, and we have mobilized significant amount of money from donor and made it available to the Ethiopian government for different interventions. Furthermore, we have been giving policy advices on different areas, giving technical support and implementing different projects. Recently, for example, we are implementing a Quaker-funded forest restoration project in 3 regions, promoting solar PV in 4 regions, installing solar PV and using that energy for productive use for our irrigation agriculture, and also supporting the government in environmental diplomacy. In the context of green legacy, that is our kind of perfect alignment with what we have, and we are contributing to that, and we contribute to that both technically in terms of human power and giving advices as per our, because we have diverse expertise based on our expert knowledge, and also mobilize financial resources for implementing some of the targets in the Green Legacy Initiative, and also closely work with our government to build capacity of line ministries experts working on the Green Legacy Initiative.
Finally, I personally believe that the Green Legacy Initiative will be sustainable with the involvement of neighboring countries. And how do you see the incumbents' effort in a bid to work with neighboring countries?
I think the Prime Minister followed the right way, the right path for our joint development. If you, as an environmentalist, for me, the political boundaries between our neighboring countries are arbitrary. For biodiversity, it doesn't make any sense. For forests, it doesn't make any sense. For example, we share same ecosystem with South Sudan, same ecosystem with Sudan, Kenya, and also Djibouti, for example, or Somalia. The point I would like to emphasize on is, although we have to respect sovereignty of our countries, if we are not developing together, if we are not restoring our lost environment together, we will not have kind of economic attachment, environmental attachment, and ensure peace and security. Because if we have joint project in one area, the two countries will care for each other. Yes, there are high-level political engagements, collaborations, regional and global laws. I fully understand that. But if you have a project on the ground where you are jointly working together, that is even more comprehensive and make community attachment, community collaborations, and government engagement. And also when resources are scattered, limited in one side and not on the other side, there is this migration moving from one area to other, attacking the peace and the security of one. So for growing together, for building a regional economic bloc, and also a region, Eastern Africa, let me give you one very practical example. Ethiopia is one of the mega biodiverse countries. That means in the world there are 25 mega diverse countries. Ethiopia is one of those. And the Horn of Africa, where Ethiopia is located, is one of the biodiversity hotspots. So, and also the Eastern Africa bloc is one of the volatile region in terms of instability, peace and instability. So if you work on such a project, you continue conserving your biological diversity, and also make sure that the region gets peace and security in terms of natural resources, utilization, and also kind of engagement at different levels, and serve as an exemplary that regional integration is possible not only in trade but also in natural resource management, and also in terms of community mobilization, because the other side, for example, the Kenyan side, will learn how the Ethiopian government managed to mobilize millions of people in a single day for many days. In none of the countries I have never read such high-level commitment and public mobilization. So they will learn, we will have positive impact on their engagement, and then we also get opportunity to learn from their best practices. Beyond the project area, we expand that best practice to other issues and also programs that has positive impact, and it's beyond natural resource conservation. It's beyond forest management. It is all inclusive.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gamado Dale, for the brilliant explanation you have given us about the Ethiopian Green Legacy Initiative, also the tradition of Ethiopians in conserving their environment and protecting forests, and also how sustainable it would become if the government of Ethiopia just frames this Green Legacy Initiative with legal frameworks, policy frameworks, and so on, and also how sustainable it would become if the regional countries are just engaged with cooperatively with Ethiopia in the Green Legacy Initiative. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.